to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad that you are able to be with us today, right here live on CKLU 96.7 FM in the greater city of Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. We've been coming at you live for over a year now, and in this capacity, we were Sudbury Sports Talk before, since 2017, right here on this same station. We've now started streaming at cklu.ca. Just click the Radio Player Canada app. You can stream us. You can also download the same Radio Player Canada app and take us with you and listen to us anytime, anywhere on your favorite device, along with any other all the other great programs that CKLU has to offer. There's a lot of people that support community radio and have supported it over the years, and so we are grateful for your support, and whether that's volunteering or whether that's monetarily supporting us. We need both volunteers and monetary donations in order to keep the lights on and keep the airwaves open and on, pay the bills, so to speak. So we appreciate that. You just go to cklu.ca and whatever you can do to help us, we really appreciate that. Also, we are streaming live on Facebook Live at facebook.com/Sudbury News. Also, youtube.com/Sudbury News. We're live there as well. So you can also catch us afterwards. It stays on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. So you could, if you not able to make it at 7:30 in the morning, and it's kind of early, which I do understand that. Got up at 5 this morning and drove into work and battled with all kinds of technical issues to get the show ready for this morning. So getting up early isn't, if I had the choice, let's say, if someone gave me the choice, I'd probably say I'd rather sleep in if I had a choice. However, life sometimes teaches us valuable lessons, and we have to do things that are uncomfortable, and we sometimes get things out of it, and sometimes it's rewarding, as this show is for me to do. It's all volunteer, and we're grateful for the technology that allows this to go forward, streaming through Facebook and YouTube. Thankful for the platforms and the moderators, the people that work there that have a job to do to make sure that everything is within community guidelines and standards. Also CRTC standards. We have to make sure that we're within those as well on CKLU. And with that, all of the views expressed on this show are those of myself or the people commenting, not of Laurentian University or that of CKLU, because we are Laurentian University's community and campus community radio station here in Greater Sudbury. We've been around since 1984 and started out in a little trailer on the Laurentian University campus and Ramsey Lake Road, and now it's in the old Telegraph building, part of the new MacEwan School of Architecture, all under Laurentian University. So all that to say, anything that's said on the show or shared is the responsibility of myself or my co-host or those who are commenting that we express on the show as well. So we appreciate you and being here. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, and also comment, as you oftentimes are my co-hosts, as we discuss issues that are important to us here in Greater Sudbury, and also people chiming in from all over the world, checking in on Sudbury and some of the things that we're talking about. Maybe it's even just checking in on what's important to us as Canadians, right? So we're Canadian, we're also Ontarians, and we're also Sudburyans. And sometimes the issues we face are similar to those that people are facing all over the world. And we try and cast a light on trying to understand the world that we live in, and that resonates, I think, with all sorts of people. So welcome if you're listening to us or watching from anywhere other than Sudbury. Welcome, and we're glad to have you on. And with that, good morning, David. Stay safe as usual. Judy, good morning. Vin, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Also, Denise from Espanola. Yes, I know the feeling. And we're grateful for all of you joining us this morning. And as more of you kind of join us, we got a great show planned for you this morning. Julia, good morning as well. Good morning, all. And we'll jump right into it. We got weather, we got sports, and then we got some headlines, local headlines. There was a death in Caperell. It was first deemed suspicious. It's now, not deemed that. So we'll check in with that. A lot of flooding going on in the city. There's the strike that's going on, the CRA, the CBC on Twitter. There's that whole thing too. We might have a follow-up on, and the amount of funding they actually get could be surprising if you haven't seen so far from your tax dollars. And do you feel represented by, your voice is represented by your media that's paid by your tax dollars? We'll kind of put that out there a bit, and then maybe another deep dive into the National Citizens Inquiry, I believe it's called. Pam, thanks for being with us today. Good to have you on. I hope that a lot of us could jump back on. Looks like we are all back on. That was weird. My server just said it's going to stop broadcasting now. It's just decided to stop broadcasting. And I'm glad that it decided to rebroadcast. So this isn't a news program. Here's my good friend Dave. Just your opinion, your personal opinion, not necessarily accurate. Yeah, just like your opinion, Dave. And just like I said, your opinion on the show, right? So again, I'll have to say, I have to make a video with the disclaimer. Sudbury News and Views, where we share our views on the news. Yes, it is news, but then we also share our views. If you go to my Facebook page, it says news personality. It doesn't say the most trusted name in news like CNN. The most trusted name in news, which you probably feel is true, right? And they never put their opinion in their news as far as I'm concerned, or right? Or like other news stations don't put their opinions, right? So what is news? You can define that. How about look that up on Google or go to a dictionary, maybe, and ask yourself, what is news? But I appreciate the love that you continually give me. It helps me actually to keep on the ball and constantly define to myself what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It's for people like yourself that are constantly bombarded by propaganda. And some people actually believe it, which is interesting. So all kinds of information coming in on here. Natalie Labby, who is a real counselor for a real city, chiming in with a real comment, says, good morning. It's National Volunteer Week, so thank you for your time, and to your co-hosts who dedicate your time in sharing your morning and your opinions with us. Thank you very much, Natalie. And Stephen says, you should change your name from news. And definitely a lot of people feel that. But you're here, right? So that shows something. It shows something that you're part of this conversation that we're having. And I really appreciate all of the comments. I'm just putting them up on the screen here because it really does help us to have a conversation. That's what the show is about. If we all agreed with each other, it really wouldn't be a real conversation, right? So Dave says, so just like Fox News, very selective on what is reported for sure. So yeah, that's the thing. CBC is very selective on what they report on. CTV is very selective on what they report on. all of CNN, very selective on what they report on. Like the Hunter Biden laptop, for instance, let's say. So Fox News broke that story, and it was deemed misinformation for the longest time on a lot of social media. Fake news. Fact checkers said it wasn't true. So Hunter Biden, who's the son of Joe Biden, brings his laptop in to get it serviced. And because he has problems with addiction and pornography and sex traffic workers and addiction to sex and drugs, forgets that he has all kinds of private information on his computer. And the person servicing his computer goes, wait a minute here. There's all kinds of what should be information that should be handed over to the FBI, and hands it over. And then you see what happens. It was right before the election as well. So social media, the FBI, everyone went to work to suppress the story from happening in the United States. Fox News was the only one that basically shared it and wanted to find out what was really going on with it. It does have a conservative spin, however. So if you are a liberal, far left person, hearing some of the concepts of working hard, saving your money, possibly having a religious affiliation, things like that, get your blood boiling, and you buy into all of the politically correctness stuff that's going on, and you hear counter arguments to that, and you don't like what you hear. You may not be able to see beyond things like that they do have a conservative spin, but the CNN and all the other mainstream media from the United States has a left-leaning spin. It's basically the CBC in the United States. And there's organizations out there that study this stuff for a living. And it's just a fact that there's left-leaning and right-leaning organizations. So that is true. But what I like to do is get beyond all of that spin of left and right and try to get to the bottom of what's going on. And you'll find on this show, we share a lot of conservative news. And there's a reason for that, because we have zero conservative news in Sudbury. Zero. So you at least need to see that side of things, or you'd think if you want to be unbiased, you'd want to hear both sides. So if you're listening to our media that we have, the only media, mainstream media we have in Sudbury, you're only going to get one side. They all beat the same drum, sing the same song. You're not going to get real people digging into real facts. And so on this show, that's what we like to do, even though it's local, and we like to keep it, talk about the really great local things that are going on. There's deeper things that are going on in our world around us, and the media that I hear in my car, because I do listen. Hey, that's the only media I get to listen to on the radio is left media. So you can't say I'm in an echo chamber just listening to one side. I actually listen to more left-leaning media than I do right. But when you put them together, you wonder, why doesn't the one side of the media share a conservative point of view? Like, why doesn't CBC have a conservative point of view on? I remember they were talking about vaccinations, let's say, back in the day. And they said, this was before the pandemic. And my daughter was vaccine injured, so bit of a sensitive issue for me. And they had 3 people on, 3 experts, all talking about how vaccines are only safe and effective and they never do any harm whatsoever. And there's no reason for parents to have any concerns whatsoever. And that's when I heard the term anti-vaxxer for the first time. And I was like, oh, are they putting a label on me because I have concerns about foreign substances that I'm putting in my body that were developed in a lab that I really don't know the ingredients of? And I saw firsthand it very much change one of my children's lives and changed our lives, because we've had to really change everything about our lives to deal with it. And then have people hating on us on social media, saying that it must be just something we've made up, or there's other reasons for it, when we know full well what caused it. And on CBC, they have 3 people talking about it, all experts. And then they said, oh, and anti-vaxxers, they just feel this, they just feel that. But you know what I noticed? They never had an anti-vaxxer on. to share their view. They just said there's people and they're anti-vaxxers and they have no reason at all to have any concerns. Not, hey, why don't we actually hear what they have to say? That would then maybe make some sense to people if they were talking. And that's something that I think the media is complicit in doing. And that's sin of omission by not having a certain point of view. So they just share one side and they don't share the other side. And then that way you can't hear it. And so you're just going to believe it, obviously. It's like sitting in a courtroom. You ever watch a court proceeding where you're like, oh, the guy's guilty as everything. The guy's guilty as sin, because you heard his lawyer speaking. Then afterwards, the other lawyer gets up and you're like, oh man, I don't actually know anymore. Maybe he's not guilty. We actually just had an example of that in Sudbury just recently with the Robert Stephen Wright trial. It's really good to talk about all sides of everything. And if you don't believe that, I mean, I really don't know what you do believe. If you just like getting one-sided media and someone who's trying to have a conversation, you want to hate on them and say, this isn't really news. So you should just type into cross-country checkup, say this is on a news station. You're going to have to change your news because you're just having a talk show on your news channel, or you have music on it. So it should be CBC News, Music and More and whatever. It shouldn't be CBC News, right? And so CBC is trying to do everything for everyone all the time, right, with your tax dollars. They put a lot of private news places out of business with your tax dollars. And then they're the only ones in these remote towns and things saying their points of view, where you should have at least two or more publicly funded news organizations, at least if you want to at least have somewhere where you can have a Fox News and a CNN at least. I'm so grateful for that, because when I hear a story on one, I'll see what the other one is saying to hear the spin. And right now, all you have are talking heads giving their opinions, by the way. The news is very much opinionated. Like, you can't deny that. You hear it in their voices. Even in the news stories, they say supposedly or far-right extremists. They just slip that into their stories, and you're like, wait a minute here. It's like the story I heard coming to work on the CBC this morning. They said the long-term health care facility that's being built in New Sudbury, I believe that's what it is, and the city's building it, and it was going beyond schedule because of the pandemic, and costs were going over and above costs. And they said the cost of what it was going to cost them $1 million per room to build. And they said, well, that's just not right. And I thought, well, yeah, I could see that logic. It's not right to build something $1 million per room, even though there's inflation and all these things. We got to take a step back. That was the right thing to do. So they went with this modular idea to save money. And then they said, and that saved the city money. And then went in other news. Well, guess what question I was stuck with at that point? How much money did they save? They didn't say that. They just left that out. So, the who, what, when, why, how, where of good reporting, so they said they stopped it. It went a year over from completion because they wanted to save money, and it was going to cost. So they gave the facts of how much it was going to cost and why they made the decision to hold off. And then they said, this is the decision we made. And then they said it saved us money. Did it save them $1? Did it save them $10? Did it save them $100,000 per unit? So that's, again, so you then hear that news, which doesn't inform you all the way, and then you have to make sense of it. Like, was that the right decision? Should we have waited a year? Was that right at the end of the day when you look at it and unpack it? News doesn't really do a good job of that. We know that news is influenced. News is influenced mainly, if you just look at it, by our government. First and foremost, how do you know that? Because they pay for it. If you look at the amount of money that's given to our media in Canada, you might as well say that's a blatant attempt by a government to influence an industry if they're giving it money. Is money ever given without strings attached? Ever? Really? That's this whole Chinese interference thing. They're saying, could these donors have given millions of dollars to the Trudeau Foundation without strings attached? Does that happen? Could the Prime Minister have taken a $9,000 a night vacation from his supporters in another country without strings attached? Do you do that for someone just because you're a friend? Or do you kind of sometimes expect something in return? Where's the CBC on that one? They don't hold our current... look, there's so much low-hanging fruit here. If this was a real news organization, the CBC, they would be... Justin Trudeau would not be the Prime Minister anymore if they really actually did news. He's the most investigated, the most suspicious. He's been investigated more than any Prime Minister in history and continues to do things just blatantly in the face of Canadians constantly. Now, would Pierre Poilievre be any different? I don't know. He's not the Prime Minister. He's not there for me to critique how he's running our country. But right now, Prime Minister Trudeau is. And when Poilievre gets in, we're going to be just as tough on him. Because we're going to ask the same questions. Is he running this country the way this country should be run? What other things should news be doing than to hold someone accountable? Honestly, what is the purpose of news? So it's to inform. Right? Why? Why is it to inform? Because you want to know what's going on. Because if there was something you need to be concerned about, you need to know about it. So you could possibly do something about it. So what would you like your news to be then? Like, what is news? So you have to define that for yourself. But right now you're watching this show. You're not watching CBC or listening to it. You're not there. So obviously you must be getting something out of this particular show. And I would hope it's to some extent informative of the community you live in and the world that you live in as well. And that's all that we're concerned about doing, is asking questions about the world we're living in, have the decisions that have been made by those that have been elected to represent us. Are they indeed representing us? Is that really happening? Is it in our best interest, locally, provincially, federally? And internationally, what's going on to affect those particular areas, right? So, wow, well, a deep dive right at the beginning of the show. I really appreciate that. Courtesy of Dave, my friend, and Stephen as well. We do need those other points of view, but at the same time, I would hope that it is a conversation and it's an enlightening one. To know, I have to keep defining what the show is. I just don't understand what your beef is with this show, other than it's showing another point of view, perhaps. And if you have a beef with that, you really have to question yourself by hearing another point of view. If it hurts you so much to hear another point of view, maybe from some of the commenters, or maybe some of the videos or news stories we share from news outlets that for some reason are triggering you. I really don't understand that. But at the same time, it makes for good entertainment, I guess. At the same time, if news can be also entertaining, why not, right? So, no, and I'm not sensationalizing anything. This isn't for me to get ratings. I am a volunteer, like Natalie said, volunteer every day, 5 days a week, all year long. I would plan to keep on the air, but people like the Trudeau government want to stop people like myself even volunteering, because they can't pay me off. They can't give me money and say, please say what we want you to say. I'm volunteering. That means, in and of itself, really, what are the strings attached here from what I'm going to say on a local community radio station? What are the strings? I love that. You know already that we're just trying to understand, it's just coming from the heart. It's coming from my experience. And you can even say, what qualifies me to say what I did? So going to school, so a diploma, a degree, and a master's should somehow qualify someone to be able to do at least a volunteer show on a community radio station for zero money and give of their own time and resources and actually spend money in about $300 a month of my own money to be able to make this happen. And I had to figure out how to do it too. I had to do the research on how to make this thing happen. And it's not easy. Again, it's motives. So if you're always asking why, what's in the agenda? Why was there a law passed? What was behind it? Why is there a policy? What's behind this policy? Who's benefiting from these policies? Who's benefiting from this law? Like if you look at the mandates, for instance, did anyone get rich over the mandates that we had, that our government forced or tried to do everything they could do to force everyone to get a vaccine? Did anyone profit from that? Okay, the answer is yes. So let's see here. The answer is yes. Who profited from it? Okay, well, I don't know the answer to that. Well, let's see. Is that available? Can I find that out? And could there have been an agenda behind the idea that was a policy and it was an instant moneymaker for certain parties? Could that have been? Can we even ask that question? Could it have been for monetary gain? The reason why you took an experimental drug almost at gunpoint, or you'd lose your job, lose your livelihood, lose your friends, or lose some of your family, be labeled anti-vaxxer, be labeled all these things. The people that stood up to that, you got to tip your hat to that. People actually lost their jobs for standing up for what they felt was right. They lost their livelihoods, they lost their family. And they still continue to be demonized today. By what? By media. Because what? Who's the media paid by? Who's one of the biggest sponsors of media? Possibly those who benefited monetarily from those mandates? Possibly. Right? So where are you going to hear that? Have you ever heard that on CBC at all? Questions, actual questions, and actually just trying to find out the real answer to things, that's what's going on. The day is almost over where this particular logic or way of reasoning is going to be over. So it's already pretty much had its day. It's that's where we're at. And so you'll be happy with just, one media. There'll be one media company, one place to order your food from online. There'll be one of everything, right? No competition, no other points of view. And you'll just have to live with it. And you have to say, yeah, that's what I wanted. So this is my world. My world is much better now that, someone with a different point of view isn't around anymore or sharing their points of view. And we also, if history has a tendency of repeating itself, which I would make a strong argument for, you just look back to see what happens when things like that go that way. And it's fine. If that's your utopian world, then you're going to live in, and that's okay. Then that's what's going to happen. It's not mine. I like competition. I like other points of view. I like variety. I don't like to eat the same thing every day, Soylent Green kind of thing. It's not my cup of tea. I really like to try different things and be free to do so. And then learn if I make a mistake I made a mistake. And if there's a law that I broke, okay, the law will do its thing. And I got to maybe go to jail if I did something wrong or what. But that's the kind of world I like living in. Making what we had better. So that's where the conservative comes in, right? So I'm openly conservative. I'd love to hear someone on CBC or any other outlet just come out and say, I'm a liberal, I'm an NDP because of these things, and just be totally transparent. What else would you want in someone who is going to attempt to actually take hold of the news and try and unpack it? Really, honestly. So there you go. With that, let's have some real weather, what's going on in Sudbury, and some real sports. At least, I don't know. I'm going to read it, and hopefully I don't make a mistake with some of the words. Then it would make it false news somehow. I don't know. But real weather, real sports, real news coming up right after this real video with real music. Be right back. All right, and half the show is literally over. And I apologize for those who already know a lot of the things that I was talking about. And it's kind of like second nature. It's like, look, the sky is blue. And look, we're standing on ground. Sometimes there's grass. Sometimes there's pavement. And there's air we breathe. And I have 2 eyes, a nose, and 2 ears. You know, that's what I felt like I was just saying for a half an hour. But anyways, that's the way it is. And currently it is +1 degree and mostly cloudy. And then today we can expect showers, high of 8, UV index 3 or moderate. Tonight, partly cloudy, lows near 0. Saturday, cloudy, high of 10. UV index will be 4 or low. Saturday again, cloudy, high of 10. Sunday, chance of rain showers or flurries, high of 5. Precipitation 60%. Monday, 30% precipitation, chance of flurries or rain showers, high of 5. Tuesday, mix of sun and cloud, high of 7. Wednesday, April the 26th, it will be a high of 11. Mix of sun and cloud. Thursday, mix of sun and cloud, high of 12. And the satellite wouldn't really, it wouldn't refresh today for some strange reason, but that's what it looked like at yesterday afternoon. But as you can see, there's just tons of clouds if you're watching. Listening on the radio, just tons of clouds everywhere, tons of activity. And you can pretty much just expect the weather forecast to be exactly what we just said. And that is your Sudbury weather, brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. For all things weather, visit sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with some local sports and then some news headlines right after this. All right, Sudbury Sports brought to you by SudburySports.com. The Five host the Jamestown Jackals in a doubleheader weekend with Jersey Night and Fan Fest. The Sudbury Five return to the Underground this weekend on the Jamestown Jackals to take on the Jamestown Jackals in back-to-back games. Saturday's game scheduled for 7 p.m. Tip-off, and then Sunday's game is 2 p.m. As usual, there's there's all kinds of sponsors and things, but the Five are on a 4-game win streak as they defeated the Windsor Express Thursday 129-117, and then L'Académie d'Alma last weekend 135-101 and 114-85 respectively. And 3 players averaged 20-plus points this week: J.D. Miller, A.J. Mosby Jr., and Braylon Rayson. So Saturday is Jersey Night, sponsored by Lake City Realty. The first 500 fans in attendance will receive Sudbury 5 practice jersey. The jerseys will be handed out in the upper front lobby of the Sudbury Community Arena, and Lake City Realty will be on hand with great prizes and giveaways for lucky fans. Make sure to visit their table courtside for information. And then Sunday's game in Sudbury will be sponsored by the Nickel City Ninjas. Will be on hand with prizes for lucky fans. 4 contestants will get to try their luck in a halftime ninja competition. Fans are encouraged to come down early, take part in the Fan Fest festivities. Say that 10 times fast. Fan Fest festivities at the Sudbury Arena, which will include face painting, free barbecue, bouncy castles, player meet and greets, and much, much more, with great prizes to win all day long. Fans are even invited to shoot around on the court between 11:30 and 12:25. Festivities begin 11:30 a.m. with the barbecue beginning around noon. Nickel City Ninjas will also have a mini ninja course set up courtside and will be on hand with prizes for lucky fans. Make sure to also stop by for more information. Following every Sunday game, all fans are invited to meet the Five for an autograph session. Kids 10 and under receive admission for only $10 all season long. Don't miss any end-to-end action. The party is just beginning. All remaining games have huge standing implications for the Five to remain on top. Make sure to secure your tickets for both upcoming games now at the Sudbury Arena box office or online at greatersudbury.ca/tickets. For more information, visit the5.ca. And then turning down to Sudbury Wolves, it is OHL Priority Selection, presented by Real Canadian Superstore. That is beginning tonight at 7 p.m. So rounds 1 and 3 begin tonight, and then rounds 4 to 15 go Saturday, April the 22nd, starting at 9 a.m. So if you want to see some of the new players that the Sudbury Wolves have their eyes on that want to select in the draft, you can tune in, watch live on CHL TV. Go to SudburyWolves.com for more information on that. We are Wolves. This is Sudbury Sports on Sudbury News Talk, and you are listening to AJ Walsh read the news, and so hopefully everything was okay with that. And it's sponsored by SudburySports.com, a real sports website with a real local sports journalist. We'll be back right after this with some news headlines. All right, Sudbury News and Views, where you get a chance to basically see what the news is in our community and share your view on the news. So as far as I can see, Sudbury.com reporting on KFC's new Colonel Sanders is a Sudbury man. As far as I know, I haven't said anything controversial so far, and I don't know if that's inappropriate to read a headline. But Rob Willis plays the Colonel as a grumpy, pouty grandpa upset. As if you've seen the commercial about chicken promotion. And it is funny, actually. Here's some of the shots from... Now, another Canadian actually played Colonel Sanders. Norm from Saturday Night Live, who's just recently passed away. So he's taking his place. So big shoes to fill there, but doing a great job. The real Colonel Sanders may have died more than 40 years ago, but did you know one of his current incarnations lives in Sudbury? KFC Canada commercials starring Rob Wills, as Colonel Sanders launched on television and social media early this month. In commercials, the Colonel seems annoyed with KFC Tuesdays promotion, which offers 2 pieces of chicken for $2.99. Anyways, my process was the Colonel as a grumpy, pouty grandpa, says Wills, because in his mind, they're just giving it away. And the other thing is, he says, hey, I didn't approve this. What's going on here? So yeah, very comical commercials. I've always appreciated comedy with commercials, and that's been a trend, I think, for some time now. You can almost be a comedy troupe just doing commercials. Something that's not quite comical, but very serious social issue here in Sudbury, also reported by Sudbury.com. Shelter spaces to remain open until at least March 31st, 2024. The 24-hour emergency shelter spaces were open during the pandemic as a temporary means of addressing a surge in homelessness, but the crisis has only increased since then. And so at least they'll be going ahead until at least another year. Whatever your views are on that, you have views, right? Things come to your mind when you hear the news being read off, and you have a view on that. You think, that's a good decision, or I wonder if that's the best decision or not, right? You probably think that. I'm reading your mind right now. Foul play ruled out in Caperall man's death. After initially deeming it suspicious, Greater Sudbury police have ruled out foul play in the death of a 69-year-old Capriol man. That's reported by Northern Ontario CTV News. You can catch that full story on their website. As some condolences coming through on the Facebook page there, along with ours. Condolences to the family and friends of the individual. With 3,000 federal workers on strike in Sudbury, Mayor Paul Lefebvre says he is concerned for the impact it will have on local families. So he's concerned about local striking workers. Also reported by Northern Ontario CTV.news, .ca. So let's see if there's anything else we can dive into here. Oh yeah, that's probably the video. So don't want to share their video. Here we go. Sudbury Police, OPP, sees handgun, drugs in the amount of about $51,000 street value of cash. Sorry, just the $51,000 is cash. Plus drugs on top of that. The Provincial Police Joint Forces Guns and Gangs Enforcement Team seized cocaine, fentanyl, and cash with a loaded gun thrown in just for whatever. And a loaded gun during the traffic stop 2 days ago, April the 19th. More of that, where that came from, that's my opinion. There's lots of drugs out there. Lots of drugs, lots of people selling drugs, trying to crack down on drugs. Good job to the police for doing that. Thank you very much. That's my opinion. Drugs are bad. It's my opinion. If they're illegal and you're trying to take them to use, even some prescribed by the doctors are bad too. There's issues there. However, some drugs are good. I've taken aspirin before. It's really helped me. Ibuprofen, sometimes the only thing that I could get through the day with. My opinion. And but I think street drugs, my opinion is they're bad. And the activity that goes around them is bad. Bad for our community, bad for our country, bad for our world. People should be doing more to stop it at all levels. What causes people to want to take it even, my opinion. And also then when they do choose to take it, I think we should do something other than legalizing it as they did in Vancouver, cocaine and other hard drugs. I really don't think that's a good idea, my opinion. Alrighty, moving on. You got your Sudbury City Councillor denies he's broke any rules in the last election campaign. Greater Sudbury Ward 11 Councillor Bill Leduc said Thursday he's absolutely confident he will be exonerated in connection with allegations he violated campaign rules during last fall's municipal election. So again, there's things in place to see whether or not he did or did not do that, and he feels he'll be fully exonerated from those accusations. And so we hope that it will be a transparent and truthful process. And at the end of the day, if he did, hopefully he's accountable. If he didn't, hopefully he's exonerated and everyone can move on and have a good day. My opinion. All right, Northern Ontario CTV News, Sudbury City Councillor coordinating extra sandbags for residents. I think that's a good thing, my opinion. It's a good thing. A Greater Sudbury City Councillor is coordinating an effort to get sandbags to residents who may need them as flooding affects areas west of Naughton. And here you can see Michael Vagnini here. He always has an interesting suit on, my opinion. He always is kind of flashy looking. I like the image. But as you can see behind him, all those sandbags there. And just a little tip for sandbags. And you can see, I think they did do them right as far as I can see in the pictures. You should never fill a sandbag to capacity. Because if you fill it to capacity and it's rock solid, and then you put the sandbags on top of each other, they have no room to conform. They're already solid and too hard to conform with each other. And that makes gaps in the sandbags for water to get through. However, if you fill them maybe to 3/4, a little bit more, there's some leeway there, and they're flexible. They move around, and when you put a sandbag on another, they basically fill in the holes a lot better. They go together. Little tip for you if you ever have to use a sandbag. That's free of charge, by the way, and that's my opinion. You can try it, and if it works, good. And if you try it and it doesn't work, you can try to sue for libel that I said my opinion and you tried it and it didn't work. You can do that. See, you're free to do all those things, which I think is great. I think that's the way it should be. If you want to take certain actions like that, you should be free to do those things. But anyways, don't take my word for it. Try it yourself. A bit of a video here of what's going on with the CBC. Maybe we end with that. I'm not sure. And then maybe a little bit of a deep dive into what our world is going through at this time. And maybe all this stuff is just a distraction. I'm not sure. But I'll be back right after Andrew Lawton shares a little bit of insight into the CBC's website on their publicly funded graph. We'll be right back after this.
This is a graph that CBC itself published. If you see the fuchsia or the purple, whatever you want to call it there, that is the government funding that CBC gets. So that's actually an important figure there. The government funding CBC gets is that pinkish fuchsia hue. Now, the blue is revenue that is not from government funding. And that blue is broken down into 3 categories there: financing and other income, subscriber fees, and advertising. And then advertising broken down into 2 categories: digital and television. But we only need to look at the bar on the left right now. So they say 2018 to 2019, $1.2 billion is government funding. Now, I want you to look at the y-axis. Now, the y-axis, for those of you like me who are not good at math, is the vertical one on the left-hand side. And I want you to count up with me, and you can even point to it with your finger as we do this. It's a fun little math game. 0, 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million, 500 million, 600 million, 700 million, 1.7 billion. Okay. They've cut out the 2 little, they've cut out and they've replaced it with tildes there. $1 billion on that graph, which actually distorts quite significantly the amount of government funding that CBC is getting. There was another gentleman on Twitter who pointed out what the graph should actually have been. And I don't know if I gave Sean that graph, but like it just shoots off the top if you're being honest about the numbers and not just eliminating 1 billion from the visualization, which reveals how much government funding CBC actually gets. And interestingly enough, Sean just pointed this out, that if you look at their advertising revenue, you're likely to find in that a lot of money that's government advertising. So a government subsidy through another means there. But CBC tries to hide the fact that it is bankrolled entirely by the state.
So yeah, is that true, or is that true? Right? So on
this
the website,
is a graph that
on the website, it says, there's a graph, and like a normal graph would work. It goes up in increments of $1 million, and then all of a sudden it just shoots right up to 1.7 billion. And if you just look visually, because a lot of us are visual, right? It's very misleading. And then they also say part of it is from advertising, which, yes, Stephen says, I never mentioned, or did you mention anything about Twitter's wording? Because it was 100% government funded media at first. Now it's 69% government funded because CBC complained and said it's not entirely government funded. Although Andrew just made a good point of some of that advertising money is also government money, saying, social messages like, make sure to get your vaccine. Vaccines are safe and effective. Brought to you by the Canadian government. So our tax dollars actually paid for that public service message, and then they included that in advertising revenue as opposed to it was just given to them, kind of thing. So yeah, so Twitter did say now it's 69%. And they're just taking them at their word, They're not saying, oh, actually what Andrew Lawton said is true, so we'll put it up to 75%, It's fine. It's given billions of dollars of our tax money. And that's the bottom line. So how about that? Given tons, way more money than any other news outlet. Okay. A little bit of the same stuff, but we'll just check in on Harrison Faulkner.
When did basic facts become so difficult for the CBC? They don't want people to know that they're just a mouthpiece for the state? If that's the case, they should have told their finance team to not publicly state on their website how much money they receive every year from the government. $1.4 billion in 2021, $1.25 billion in 2022. Now, to be fair, it does look as though the CBC are a little bit embarrassed about how much money they receive from all of us, the taxpayer. Take a look at this in-house CBC financials graphic. Notice those little squiggly lines on the y-axis that indicate a $1 billion jump? It's a little misleading there. Looking at this graph at face value, you might think the CBC receives a small amount of government funding. Now, this is what the graph would look like if they weren't trying to mislead you. Bit of a different look there, isn't it? Pretty embarrassing for the CBC. But why do they have to take such issue with being government funded if it's so obviously funded by all of us? As mentioned in the intro, the Liberal Party of Canada doesn't hide their love for funding the CBC. On their own website, they state it publicly. Canada wouldn't be the same without the CBC. Are you sure about that? That's why Justin Trudeau and the Liberals invested $675 million in funding to revitalize the CBC. So it's not just government funded, it's Justin Trudeau funded.
Yeah, so again, right, misleading. It's kind of like the way I look at their news. That graph is a really good idea of the way their news is delivered. Though from my point of view, from my opinion, as someone who studies this kind of thing, right? And just wants to volunteer their time to have that discussion. Is the news that we're getting totally unbiased? And here's just an example where the news organizations themselves have become news, and it's made it mainstream where we can actually talk about it, right? So we'll be back on Monday with some more of that, maybe trying to understand the world we're living in too, and maybe all this is just some distractions to distract us away from the real issues that we're facing as a world these days. We're basically, arguably, already in World War III, or it could be going towards that, a financial collapse and a food shortage. Those are huge things. And they should have the news' attention, but you don't really hear that on our mainstream media. We'll be back. Same time, same place. Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay positive, regardless of what's going on outside. Look at the positive in everything. And stay tuned now for Earshot Daily. We'll be back. Same time, same place. Have a great one, everyone. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.